Zara had always been a strong and capable alien soldier. She was the pride of her people, feared and respected across the galaxy. As an officer in the elite military forces of the Noxian Empire, her duty was to protect her world from all external threats. The Noxians, a race of powerful beings, valued strength above all else. Zara had trained for years to perfect her skills in combat, strategy, and survival. But she had never encountered anything like this. It all began one quiet evening. In the vast, futuristic city of Noxus, where Zara had just finished her daily training exercises, the sun had set, casting an eerie glow over the city's sleek silver towers. Zara made her way through the winding streets, tired from the day's work but still alert. The streets were empty, the usual buzz of activity replaced by an unsettling stillness. She didn't mind the quiet after all. It was a sign of a safe city. As she walked toward her quarters, something unusual caught her eye. A strange glowing vial lay in the street, half hidden beneath a pile of discarded debris. It glowed with an unnatural, almost hypnotic light. Zara's keen instincts immediately kicked in. She knew that anything out of place in Noxus was dangerous, and this vial looked like it could be something important. Curiosity pulled her closer, and without thinking, she knelt to examine the vial. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen before human technology. Zara had heard rumors about humans, the so-called primitive race from another galaxy. Their technology was far behind that of the Noxians, yet this vial looked far too advanced for anything she had encountered in the human systems. Without hesitation, she picked it up, examining the strange markings on the label. The vial seemed to be sealed tightly, but there was something about it that made her feel uneasy. It was a small container, about the size of a typical medical syringe, with a shimmering liquid inside. Zara was no scientist, but she could tell this was no ordinary substance. She was about to toss it aside when a voice echoed in her mind. A warning, don't touch it. It's dangerous, but the voice wasn't her own. It was an old memory, something her mentor had once told her during training. He had warned her about the dangers of unknown substances, especially ones with origins she did not understand. But Zara was no novice. She had faced dangers before. Her hand tightened around the vial, as a strange sense of determination overcame her. She'd survived countless battles, fought against alien beasts, and even survived the harshest training her people could throw at her. If there was something hidden here, she would find out what it was. With one swift motion, she uncorked the vial and held it to her lips. Without a second thought, she drank the contents, hoping to uncover its secrets. The liquid slid down her throat, cool and smooth, almost like a thick nectar. At first, nothing happened. Zara stood there, confused. Was it all just some kind of trick? She couldn't be sure, but there was a faint stirring inside her chest, as though something had awakened. Her muscles tightened, and her heart began to race. She shook her head, trying to shake off the strange sensation, but the feeling only grew stronger. It wasn't just her muscles. Her vision blurred slightly, her senses heightened. The world around her seemed sharper, clearer. Zara could hear the faintest rustle of leaves from across the street, the beating of her own heart echoing in her ears. She felt alive in ways she had never experienced before. What was happening to me, she thought, as a wave of dizziness hit her. Zara staggered backward, trying to steady herself against the wall. Her body was reacting to something beyond her, understanding, and she had no idea what it meant. As she stood there, trying to regain control, a strange warmth filled her body, starting from her chest and spreading outward. It wasn't a warmth from the sun or the air. It was something much deeper. Something inside me, Zara realized, with a sudden rush of awareness. The serum had done something to her, and she was already feeling the effects. But what kind of power had it given her? Her thoughts began to scatter as an unexpected wave of emotion flooded her. Anger, excitement, and an overwhelming sense of strength coursed through her veins. Zara clenched her fists, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She could feel the power surging within her, urging her to act, to do something. The world around her seemed so small, so insignificant. She took a step forward. The the ground beneath her feet seeming to shift with every movement. Her speed had increased, her senses sharper than before, but there was something unsettling about it. The power felt foreign to her, like it didn't belong. She wasn't sure if she could control it. Zara's gaze turned to the sky, the stars, twinkling above her. She was no longer the soldier she had been only moments before. Something inside her had changed, and she didn't know if she was ready for it. What have I done? Her mind raced, but her body felt like it was no longer under her command. There was a strange hunger growing within her, a desire she had never known before. It was as if the serum had unlocked a door to something she couldn't control. Just then, she heard a faint sound in the distance. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Zara snapped to attention, her instincts now fully awakened by the serum's influence. She could feel her heartbeat accelerating, her senses focused on the approaching footsteps. Whoever they were, they wouldn't be able to hide from her now. But as the figures drew closer, Zara knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. The serum had given her more than just power. It had awakened something deep inside her that she was not ready to face. Zara was no longer just a soldier. She was something new, and the world would soon see the consequences of what she had just unleashed. Zara stood frozen in the middle of the quiet street, her heart still pounding in her chest. The sensation that had overtaken her was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside her, turning her very essence into something ... different. Her body was on edge, her senses on high alert. She could feel the rush of power surging through her veins, like an electric current crackling just beneath her skin. At first it was subtle, a sharpness in her vision, a slight tingling in her fingertips, but within moments it became more intense. Zara's breath quickened as a wave of heat washed over her. It was like fire coursing through her muscles, making her feel alive in a way she had never imagined. But it wasn't just power, it was something else, something primal. She looked around, trying to focus on the world around her. The colors seemed more vivid, the air heavier. She could hear the distant hum of the city, the soft whisper of the wind through the trees. And most strangely, she could hear her own heartbeat. Thumping loudly in her ears, Zara closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. "Calm down," she told herself. "This is just a reaction. I'll be fine." But the more she tried to control it, the stronger the sensations became. Her body felt restless, as if it was urging her to move, to act, to release all this pent-up energy. She could feel it in every muscle, every tendon, stretching and expanding. It was like her physical form was being enhanced with every passing second. She clenched her fists, and the force behind it was greater than anything she had ever felt. Nails dug into her palm, but the pain barely registered. She could feel the power coursing through her, but it didn't feel like her own. It felt foreign, like she was sharing her body with something else. Zara staggered forward, instinctively taking a few quick steps down the street. Her movements were too fast, almost too fast to control. She felt as though she was gliding, her feet barely touching the ground. The speed was exhilarating, but also terrifying. She tried to slow herself down, but it was as if her body was refusing to listen to her commands. Her heart raced even faster as a strange urge bubbled up inside her. It was like an animal instinct, a need to prove herself, to show the world what she was capable of. Zara felt her pulse spike again, and this time she didn't fight it. She reached out, grabbing a nearby metal street pole, and with a sudden, overwhelming surge of power, she snapped it in half as easily as if it were a twig. The sound of metal snapping echoed through the empty streets, a sharp, jarring noise that seemed to cut through the silence of the city. Zara stared at the broken pole in disbelief, her hands trembling as she dropped the two halves onto the ground. Her mind raced. What am I doing? She couldn't control herself. She had never been this strong, this fast, this ... reckless. She turned, her gaze back to the vial in her hand, the one that had caused all of this. The liquid inside was still faintly glowing, as if mocking her for thinking she could handle its power. Zara's breath hitched in her chest. I need to figure out what's happening to me, but as much as she wanted to understand, a part of her was afraid to delve deeper. What if the serum had changed her beyond recognition? What if she could never go back to the soldier she once was? Zara's mind spiraled as she tried to grasp onto some sense of control. But the more she struggled, the more the sensation within her grew. She could feel it pulsing through her raw, untamed energy, too much for her to handle. She clenched her teeth, trying to hold herself together, but her body betrayed her. She felt an overwhelming desire to lash out, to break something, to release the chaos that had taken root inside her. This isn't me, she thought, but the voice in her head sounded distant. The power felt too strong, too addictive. Zara stumbled backward, her mind becoming a blur of thoughts and emotions that she couldn't keep track of. She had always been in control, a master of her body and mind. But now, she was at the mercy of something far greater than her. Her eyes scanned the area. Something strange caught her attention, a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a human soldier, Captain Hayes. She recognized him instantly. He had been stationed in the city, a commander sent to work with the Noxian forces on a joint mission. Zara had never spoken to him much, but she had heard of him as strong, as composed leader who had earned the respect of both his human comrades and the Noxians. But as their eyes met, Zara felt a surge of something more. It wasn't just recognition, it was a magnetic pull, a connection she couldn't explain. The serum had changed her, and it was changing everything about the way she saw the world. She could feel her heart rate spike as she locked eyes with him. The world around her narrowing until it was just the two of them. Captain Hayes stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening as he saw the destruction Zara had caused. His hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. Instead, he took a cautious step forward, his expression unreadable. Zara felt a surge of frustration. The world felt like it was closing in around her, and the desire to control everything, to control him, was becoming too strong. She took a step toward him, her body moving faster than her mind could follow. She reached out, but before she could make contact, a wave of dizziness hit her. She staggered, her knees buckling beneath her. The power within her surged one last time, and then, for a moment, everything went black. Zara collapsed onto the ground. Unconscious, the power still raging beneath her skin. When she awoke, the world felt quieter. But Zara knew, deep down, that the transformation had only just begun. And this was just the beginning of the journey into a darkness she wasn't sure she could escape. Zara's mind was in chaos as she stumbled back to her feet. The last remnants of dizziness lingered in her head, but the power still surged beneath her skin, urging her to act. She looked up, her breath shallow and erratic. The human soldier, Captain Hayes, was still standing before her, watching her with a mixture of caution and intrigue. He hadn't drawn his weapon, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Zara could feel the weight of his gaze on her, and it only made the strange emotions coursing through her more intense. What is happening to me? She thought, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this feeling. She'd faced enemies in battle before, but this was different. This wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something primal. Zara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She could feel the urge to do something, anything, surging inside her. She didn't want to be weak. Not now. Not after everything she had worked for. But this power, this strange strength, felt like a double-edged sword. It was exhilarating but uncontrollable. Captain Hayes took a cautious step forward, his eyes still locked on hers. His voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable wariness. In his tone, you're not yourself, he said, slowly lowering his hand from his sidearm. Whatever you've taken, it's changing you. We need to get you to safety. Zara's mind raced. He didn't understand. How could he? She wasn't just some pawn to be moved into safety. She was a warrior, a soldier. The last thing she needed was someone trying to protect her. I don't need your help, Zara growled, her voice rough and tinged with something darker. The words spilled out before she could stop them. She didn't even know why she said them. It was as if the serum had unlocked a side of her that she didn't recognize. Captain Hayes froze, his eyes narrowing as he assessed her. "You're right," he said, his voice low. "You don't. But this isn't you. You don't have to do this." Zara's chest tightened at his words. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She wasn't supposed to feel ... vulnerable. But the power inside her was so overwhelming. It clouded her judgment, consumed her thoughts. She wanted to scream, to destroy everything around her just to feel in control. Her hands trembled, and for a moment she almost couldn't hold herself together. The urge to lash out was unbearable. She didn't want to hurt anyone, especially not someone like Captain Hayes, someone who didn't deserve it, but the power was too much. It was like a fire inside her, burning everything in its path. Without thinking, she lunged forward. Captain Hayes reacted quickly, his military training kicking in. He ducked, avoiding her grip by mere inches. But Zara was faster, her body moving with an inhuman swiftness. She turned, swiping her hand through the air, aiming for his sidearm. The motion was almost too fast for him to follow. "Draw his weapon." Zara's fist connected with the ground beside him, sending a shockwave of force that cracked the pavement. The impact sent a ripple through the ground, knocking Captain Hayes off balance. He fell backward, landing hard on the ground. Zara stood over him, her chest rising and falling with every breath, her heart still pounding in her ears. She had him now. She had the power to do whatever she wanted, to crush him, to make him understand what she was capable of. But as she looked down at him, something inside her faltered. His eyes, wide with shock, but filled with a quiet understanding, met hers. He wasn't afraid of her, not the way she expected. Instead, he saw her for what she truly was, a warrior, struggling to hold on to her humanity amidst the overwhelming power of the serum. "Zara," he said softly, his voice calm. "I know you don't want this, but you can't control it alone. You need help, and I'm offering it." The words hit her like a physical blow. Zara's hand twitched at her side, her fists still clenched. She could feel the anger, the frustration, building inside her, but beneath it, there was something else. Doubt, fear. A part of her wanted to let the rage consume her, to destroy everything in her path. But another part, a smaller, quieter voice, told her that she couldn't lose herself to this power. Zara hesitated, her mind a battlefield of emotions. "I can't let him get close. I can't let anyone get close." She had always been strong, independent. She didn't need anyone. Now everything was different. The power she had embraced was changing her. She could feel it deep in her bones. "Stay away from me," Zara snarled, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. She took a step back, but the raw power inside her refused to let her go. She was on the edge, teetering between control and chaos. Her hands were shaking, her vision swimming with a haze of fury and confusion. Captain Hayes slowly got to his feet, never taking his eyes off her. He didn't move toward her. Instead, he held his ground, his posture calm, even as the tension between them was palpable. "I'm not here to fight you, Zara," he said, his voice steady, but with a hint of urgency. "But if we don't figure this out, it'll destroy. You're not just fighting me, you're fighting yourself." Zara's body tensed at his words. He was right. This wasn't just about power, it was about losing control. She didn't know what the serum had done to her, but she could feel the instability creeping in. It was too much to handle alone. For a moment the world around her seemed to fade, leaving just the two of them standing in the middle of the street. Zara looked at Captain Hayes, her mind spinning with 1,000 conflicting thoughts. She didn't know what to do, but one thing was certain: this wasn't over. The conflict wasn't just with the humans, it was with herself. And unless she found a way to control the power within her, she would destroy everything she had worked so hard to protect. Zara took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling in her chest. This was only the beginning. Zara didn't sleep that night. The power still churned inside her, waking her at the slightest shift in the air.
Her body ached.
Not from physical strain, but from something deeper, something she couldn't name. The serum had changed her. She could feel it in every muscle, every heartbeat, every breath. And yet, despite her newfound strength, there was a hollow fear inside her, a whisper that warned her she might be losing herself. As the sun rose over the city, Zara left her quarters, her mind a storm of confusion and anger. She needed answers, but where could she find them? The serum had been hidden, secretive, and she was certain the Noxian Empire wasn't about to share any information about it. It wasn't just a simple enhancement, it was an experiment, a dangerous game played with human technology. She walked through the streets of Noxus, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Zara wasn't sure where to begin, but she knew one thing. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to uncover the truth, and she needed to do it fast, before the power inside her consumed her completely. After hours of searching, Zara finally found a lead. Deep beneath the city, in a forgotten archive, was an old, abandoned laboratory. She had heard rumors about it, whispers of human technology being studied in secret. This was where it all began. The serum had come from here, Zara was certain of it. The lab was dark and cold, its walls covered in dust, its floors creaking under her weight. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and metal. Zara could almost hear the echo of long-forgotten experiments still lingering in the silence. She stepped carefully, her mind sharp despite the chaos swirling inside her. If there was any chance of finding out what the serum truly did to her, it was here. Her footsteps echoed as she moved through the labyrinth of metal shelves, each one filled with old files and documents. Zara pulled a few down, quickly scanning the contents. But they were in a language she didn't recognize. Noxian symbols mixed with strange alien scripts that seemed too advanced to understand. Nothing useful, till she found one last file, buried beneath a pile of old reports. It was sealed in a clear glass case. The words Project Serpent etched into the cover in bold, metallic lettering. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the case, her heart pounding in anticipation. This was it. The answers she had been looking for. Zara carefully opened the file and began to read Project Serpent, a revolutionary step in military evolution. The document explained everything. The serum wasn't just a random concoction of chemicals. It was a military-grade enhancement designed to amplify an individual's physical and mental capabilities. The Noxian Empire had sought to create the perfect soldier, stronger, faster, more resilient, using human technology as a base. But there was more. The serum wasn't a mere enhancement. It was a weapon designed to trigger violent emotions, to push the subject to the brink of insanity and rage. The serum manipulated the subject's neural pathways, unlocking primal instincts and heightened aggression. It made them powerful, but at a cost. The last line of the report sent a chill down Zara's spine. Subject may lose control of emotions, becoming a threat to both allies and enemies. Her blood ran cold as the truth hit her like a physical blow. This serum was never meant to be used as a tool for defense or strength. It was meant to turn soldiers into mindless weapons, and she was the first to be exposed to it. Zara slammed the file down onto the table, her hands shaking. The power inside her was not a gift, it was a curse. The serum had unlocked something inside her that she couldn't control, something that could turn her into a monster. She had already felt the pull of that darkness, the urge to strike, to destroy, to let the power run wild. The realization hit her harder than she expected. She wasn't just fighting for control of her body, she was fighting for her soul. If she couldn't stop the serum from taking over, she would become the very thing she had always despised, a mindless weapon. Zara's breath came in sharp, gasps as the weight of the truth settled into her chest. The feeling of power was no longer exhilarating. It was terrifying. She wasn't the warrior she thought she was. She was a tool, a puppet controlled by the very serum she had consumed. And as much as she tried to fight it, the serum had already begun to reshape her mind, pushing her towards something darker, something more dangerous. But there was one thing the report didn't explain. One thing Zara couldn't yet understand. There were mentions of reversal, a way to reverse the effects of the serum, to restore the subject's original self. The project had been abandoned before any real progress could be made, but the possibility was there. Somewhere, Someone had figured out how to reverse the effects, or at least stabilize them. Zara clenched her fists, the surge of power throbbing beneath her skin. She wasn't ready to give up, not yet. If there was a way to stop this madness, to reclaim her humanity, she would find it, no matter what it took. But as she stood there, in the dim, cold lab, another realization hit her. She wasn't alone in this fight. Captain Hayes had seen her struggle. He had offered help when she needed it most. He didn't see her as a monster, a weapon, or a threat. He saw her as Zara, warrior, a person, and perhaps, with his help, she could find a way to control the power within her. Together, they might be able to stop the serum's grip on her, to free her from its influence before it tore her apart, but the road ahead would be long and dangerous. Zara knew she couldn't trust everyone. There were others who would want the serum's power for themselves. She had already seen how easily it could turn her into a weapon. The secret was out. But the real battle was just beginning. Zara had never felt so torn. The night had settled in, the stars shining coldly overhead as she stood outside the abandoned lab, her mind racing. The serum still pulsed through her veins, thrumming like a wild, untamed beast. She could feel it, pushing against the confines of her control, urging her to let go, to unleash the fury that it had awakened within her. Every step felt heavy, as if the weight of her own power was pressing down on her shoulders. She couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. If she didn't find a way to stop this transformation, this madness, she would lose herself. The power wasn't just changing her body, it was changing her mind, her emotions, her very sense of self. She was teetering on the edge. The pull of the serum was stronger than anything she had ever faced. But there was one thing Zara could still count on. Her mind. She knew she couldn't fight this alone. Not anymore. Captain Hayes was the only. A person who hadn't seen her as a monster. In a strange twist of fate, he had become her ally. The only one who might be able to help her navigate the treacherous path ahead. Zara arrived at the meeting spot, quiet hidden courtyard at the heart of the city. The sound of her boots against the stone was the only noise that filled the air, and her thoughts seemed to swirl in the silence. She felt the familiar presence before she saw him, Captain Hayes, standing at the far end of the courtyard waiting. His posture was calm, collected as always. He had the look of someone who had seen battle. But there was a kindness in his eyes now that Zara hadn't expected. She approached him without a word, her gaze unwavering. There was no time for pleasantries, no time for questions. Zara needed answers. "We need to talk," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. Captain Hayes studied her for a moment, his gaze sharp, yet understanding. "I know, but I don't think this is something we can just talk our way through, Zara." Zara clenched her fists at her sides, the urge to lash out bubbling beneath the surface. She controlled it. "Barely. You don't understand. I can't control it. The serum, it's changing me. I can feel it taking over, and I don't know if I can stop it." Hayes took a step closer, his expression unreadable. "You can, but not on your own." Zara stiffened at his words. "What do you mean? I've been trained my whole life to control my mind, my emotions. Now it's like I'm at war with myself." She shook her head, frustration seeping into her voice. "You don't get it? Not the same anymore. I don't know who I am anymore." "You're still you," Zara, Hayes said firmly. "But this serum, it's messing with your brain. It's designed to push you past your limits, to make you a weapon. But we don't have to let it control you." Zara's gaze dropped to the ground, her fists still clenched tightly. "Then how do we stop it? How do I stop it before it completely consumes me?" Hayes sighed, glancing around as though making sure no one else was watching. "Been looking into it. There's a way to stabilize the effects of the serum, but it's not simple. The reversal process is dangerous. If it's done wrong, it could make things worse. But I think I've found something. There's a lab on the outskirts of the city. It's not government approved, but it's the only place that has the equipment and data we need." Zara looked up, her mind racing. "And you trust this place?" "No," Hayes said bluntly. "But I trust you. And I trust that if we're careful, we can do this. We have to act fast, though." The longer the serum stays in your system, the harder it will be to reverse. And if we wait too long, you could lose control completely. Zara's heart skipped a beat. She didn't want to think about what might happen if she lost control. The idea of being a weapon, of destroying everything in her path without even realizing it, was too much to bear. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that there was no other choice. She had to fight for her humanity. "We do it your way," Zara said, her voice low but determined. "We get to this lab, and we fix this. But if anything goes wrong, I need to know you'll stop me before I become a danger to everyone." Hayes nodded solemnly. "I will." For the first time since she had consumed the serum, Zara felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone. She wasn't fighting this monster inside her by herself. Together, they could find a way to stop the serum from consuming her completely. But as they turned to leave, Zara's mind was still heavy with doubt. They were entering uncharted territory, and there were forces at work that neither of them fully understood. The lab they were heading to could be the key to her salvation, or it could be her downfall. She glanced over at Hayes. Seeing the determination in his eyes, he's not giving up on me. So I won't give up on myself. But in the back of her mind, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Something or someone was keeping an eye on them, and that was the last thing she needed right now. As they walked through the dim-lit streets of Noxus, Zara couldn't help but wonder, was this truly the path to her redemption, or was she walking straight into a trap? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, she would fight with everything she had. She wasn't ready to lose herself just yet. The darkened streets of Noxus stretched before them, shrouded in silence, broken only by the distant hum of city life. Zara's mind was racing, torn between the terrifying promise of the serum's effects and the fragile hope that this dangerous journey might restore her to herself. Every step she took seemed heavier, the weight of the power within her pushing against her every breath. It felt as though her body was no longer entirely her own. She was a prisoner inside her own skin. "Captain." Hayes walked beside her, his steps deliberate, his expression unreadable. He had been quiet ever since they had left the courtyard, his usual calm demeanor replaced with an air of solemn determination. Zara couldn't tell if it was because he was nervous or if he was simply trying to hide the same fear that gnawed at her insides. Either way, she couldn't afford to think about it. As they neared the outskirts of the city, the buildings began to thin, the neon lights replaced by the dim glow of street lamps. Zara's eyes darted around nervously, the shadows too dark, the air too still. "I shouldn't have come," she thought. "I shouldn't be here, shouldn't be trusting him." The doubt surged once again. What if they were walking into a trap? If Hayes had an agenda she didn't understand? But in the end, there was no choice. She had already taken the serum, and now she was bound to its effects. The power inside her had already begun to change her, and she could feel it with every step they took toward the lab. She couldn't run from it, not anymore. "We're almost there," Hayes said quietly, breaking the silence. God. He didn't look at her, but she could hear the tension in his voice. Zara nodded, though she didn't know if it was for his benefit or her own. The lab was an old crumbling facility hidden away in the industrial sector. It wasn't much to look at, just a faded sign, the letters worn away by time, and a set of metal doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. But as they approached, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "This is it," Hayes said, his hand resting on the door handle. "Inside, we'll find the equipment we need. I've located the serum's genetic blueprint. If we can isolate the right chemical compound, we can reverse the effects." Zara swallowed hard. She had to trust him. She had no choice. But there was still one thing she needed to know. "What's the catch?" she asked, her voice low. "There's got to be something you're not telling me. Something that could make this ... worse." Hayes hesitated for a moment before meeting her gaze. His eyes were tired, as though he had carried this burden for longer than she could imagine. "You're right," he said softly. "There is a catch. The reversal process is risky. It's untested. The serum rewires your neural pathways, enhances your physical traits, but it also makes you more volatile, unstable. If we're not careful, the process could push you even further into that aggression. It could leave you worse than you are now. Zara's chest tightened. She was no stranger to risk. She had been trained for combat, trained to make tough decisions. But this was different. This wasn't a fight against an enemy. This was a battle for her own mind. Then why even try? Zara asked, her voice wavering. If we fail, I might lose myself completely. Hayes took a step closer to her, his eyes steady. Because if we don't try, you're already lost. The serum is already eating away at you, Zara. You've felt it. I've seen it. If we don't act now, we won't be able to stop it. I won't let that happen to you. Zara closed her eyes, the weight of his words pressing down on her. I'm not the same, she thought again, the power in her chest searing. The aggression, the rage, wasn't just a reaction to the serum. It was becoming a part of her. The person she used to be, the warrior, the soldier, the protector, was slipping away, replaced by something dangerous. She was fighting a battle on two fronts, the serum inside her, and the fear of losing everything she had ever stood for. She opened her eyes and looked at Hayes. There was no turning back now. Let's do it, she said quietly, her voice resolute. Hayes nodded, its expression grim but proud. We'll start with the serum's genetic sequence and extract the neutralizing agent. If we're lucky, it'll reverse the effects. If we're unlucky, we fight, Zara interrupted, her gaze hardening. Well, fight to the end, together. Without another word, Hayes opened the door, revealing the dim, cold interior of the lab. The walls were lined with old equipment, glowing screens filled with incomprehensible data, and the faint hum of machinery powered by ancient technology. It was a strange mix of old and new, a symbol of everything Zara had come to distrust. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of chemicals and dust, and Zara felt the familiar tension in her chest tighten. But she couldn't afford to back down now, not when the serum's influence was still thrumming inside her, making her feel like she was slipping further into the abyss with every passing second. This is it, Hayes said, walking to one of the terminals. We can't waste any more time. Zara followed him, every muscle in her body on edge. She could feel the serum inside her, like a constant pulsing presence. I can do this, she thought. I have to. Hayes was already working, his fingers flying over the terminal's keys as he searched for the sequence that would give them a fighting chance. She wanted to believe in this, wanted to believe that there was still a chance to save herself. But deep down she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something far more dangerous than either of them realized. As Hayes found the sequence and began the extraction process, Zara turned away, her hands trembling. There was no turning back now, and as the lab's machinery hummed louder, Zara couldn't help but wonder what if the serum wasn't the only thing that had changed her. What if deep down, the real test wasn't the reversal process at all? What if the real battle was about the choice she would have to make once she regained control? The choice to be human again or to embrace the darkness within? The room was silent except for the soft hum of the machines, their faint glow illuminating Zara's tense face. Her heart thundered in her chest as she watched Hayes work. He had found the sequence and, now the most critical moment, had arrived. Zara knew this was it. There was no more time. The serum had already taken too much from her, and she could feel the power inside her still clawing at the edges of her mind, demanding to be unleashed. It would only be a matter of time before it consumed her completely. Her breath was shallow, her body trembling as she stepped away from the terminal. How long? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Hayes didn't look up from the screen. It's starting, but we need to be careful. The serum has bonded with your neural pathways, Zara. If we push it too fast, we could trigger a backlash. This isn't just a simple antidote. This is your life we're talking about. Zara clenched her fists, trying to steady herself. The fear in his voice did nothing to ease her nerves, but she understood. She understood what was at stake. And in a way, she felt the sheer, uncontrollable force inside her, threatening to take her under. I've already lost control, Zara said, her words raw and tinged with desperation. I don't even know who I am anymore, Hayes. But I don't want to be this ... thing. I don't want to be a weapon. I want to be me again. She turned away, trying to breathe through the suffocating pressure in her chest. Every second felt like a countdown, each heartbeat taking her closer to the edge. The lab was quiet for a moment, too quiet. And then, in a low voice, Hayes spoke, his words filled with resolve. You are still you, Zara. You're stronger than this serum. Stronger than the rage it's given you? This is your fight, and I'm here to help you win it. Her eyes flicked to him, but she said nothing. His faith in her seemed to anchor her in the chaos, but deep down she was terrified. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was teetering on the edge of something far darker than she could control. Then with a click, the machine powered up, and Zara felt a strange sensation ripple through her body. Cold at first, but then warm, almost comforting, as though something was being unraveled inside her. It wasn't the feeling of being healed. No, it felt more like being torn apart and remade all at once. Zara gasped, a wave of dizziness crashing over her. She staggered, backward, clutching the side of a table to keep herself upright. Her body was in conflict with itself. Half of her was trying to fight, to resist the flow of the antidote, while the other half just wanted to let go, to embrace the power that had so easily taken control of her. Zara, stay with me, Hayes said, his voice sharp and urgent. But Zara couldn't hear him. She could only feel the surge, the fire rising within her, pulling her down the path she had fought so hard to avoid. Her vision blurred, and the world around her became a haze of shifting shadows. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, faster now, louder than before. The power was overwhelming. It was becoming her. She had only one choice now. One final stand. Zara raised her hands, and the room seemed to tremble with the force of her will. Her chest heaved as her body fought against the antidote, the serum inside her pushing back with all its might. It was as if her entire being was caught in a tug-of-war between her past self, her humanity, and the monstrous strength that the serum had awakened. I won't lose myself, she thought, through the storm of fury and fear. I won't let this power define me. She closed her eyes, focusing every ounce of energy she had left on that one thought. Slowly, she felt the raw force begin to ebb just a little, but it was enough. The antidote had found its mark, unraveling. The connections that bound her to the serum. For the first time, Zara felt the darkness inside her loosen its grip. But then, something unexpected happened. As the antidote worked its way deeper into her system, she felt something else, something more dangerous. The last vestiges of the serum were fighting back, twisting and distorting inside her, trying to reclaim what it had lost. Zara's body buckled under the strain. Her knees hit the floor, her hands bracing her against the cold metal. The energy inside her was like a storm, a torrent of violence and confusion. And for a brief moment, Zara thought she might lose control again, might let the rage overtake her. But then Hayes was there kneeling beside her, his hand on her shoulder. She could feel the warmth of his touch, steadying her. I'm here, Zara. Don't give in. You're stronger than this. His words pierced through the chaos, grounding her. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. With every ounce of willpower she had left, Zara forced her body to calm. Her breathing slowed, her heart settled into a steady rhythm. She could feel the darkness within her receding, pushed back by the antidote and by her own determination. It wasn't over yet. Not completely. She could still feel the remnants of the serum, still feel the surge of power lurking beneath her skin. But it was different now. She was different. Zara stood slowly, her body still shaking, but no longer from fear. Eyes met Hayes's, and for the first time she saw something in his gaze that made her feel human again. He hadn't given up on her. And now she wasn't giving up on herself. The lab around them seemed quieter now. The machines hummed softly, a steady rhythm in the background. It was as if the world had paused for a moment, allowing Zara to regain control. But she knew deep down that this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The final stand had been won. But the true battle, The fight for her humanity, for her soul, was just starting, and Zara was ready for whatever came next.